Hello and welcome to 5 Commander Cards. Today we're going to be looking at the theme of utility creatures. So these are creatures that provide extra use significantly beyond their power, toughness, and mana efficiency. So each of the creatures that I've chosen for this, they're going to have some sort of ability or something about them that really makes them stand out as being useful in a diverse amount of situations. So let's take a look. Alright, creature number 1, we have Temur Sabertooth. 2 green for a 4/3, so you're already getting a pretty good body for it, but his ability is really good. 1 in green, you may return another creature you control to its owner's hand. If you do, Temur Sabertooth gains indestructible until end of turn. Not only does this allow you to create this creature to become indestructible, it comes into playability, so you can bounce a creature to your hand and then put it back into play. So if it comes into play with +1/+1 counters, or maybe even like an Eternal Witness brings something from your graveyard to your hand, you can bounce Eternal Witness back to your hand and then play it again. So there's a lot of different things you could use to bounce things. You can also use it to save your creatures. If a field clearance effect comes in like Wrath of God, you can return stuff to your hand, but you also make Temur Sabertooth indestructible, making it a great blocker, or even when it attacks, you can return another creature from combat if it's being threatened. And then that makes Temur Sabertooth indestructible as it attacks your opponent's life. This card is just great. It's an uncommon, but it's just such a fantastic utility card. I try to use it when I run green. Alright, our next card we have Kazul, Tyrant of the Cliffs. This guy is great because, first off, 3 red for a 5/4. Okay, once again, a pretty good body for the mana cost, but whenever a creature an opponent controls attacks, if you're the defending player, put a 3/3 red ogre creature token into the battlefield unless that creature's controller pays 3. This automatically creates chump blockers unless your opponent is willing to pay extra mana. Not only does it divert them away from attacking you because they know you'll have a chump blocker, but these creature tokens don't leave play if they survive. So if your opponent attacks, you get a 3/3, you decide not to block, or you block with something better, this just generates you more creatures on the field. With more creatures, you can do a lot more stuff. Creature number 3 we have is World Queller. This is another one of my favorite cards because it's just of the options and control and power, and it's a very white card. 3 white for a 4/4, so again, we have pretty good bodies running across all these cards, but at the beginning of your upkeep, you may choose a card type. If you do, each player sacrifices a permanent of that type. This is how you kill planeswalkers. This is how you destroy enchantments or artifacts, or even you cut down the mana supply of all your opponents by choosing land every turn. World Queller really puts the edge on your opponents, and you get to choose. And the best part is, you also may choose a card type. So you can just leave this guy on your field if you have everything that you want and your opponents don't. And you can just let it sit here as another threat, like, hey, you better not play that planeswalker because you know next turn it's going to die. So it not only stalls the game, but it's an overall great card. It kind of has the idea of balance, which is, everybody sacrifices lands, creatures, and cards in hand, or they discard them down. But the idea is it's more of a sacrifice upon it. It just reminds me of balance very much. World Queller is one of my favorite cards. Alright, our next card we're going to look at is Pack Rat. It's a pretty popular card, but I don't think some of the new Commander players may be familiar with this guy. It's 1 in black. Star, power and toughness. Power and toughness are each equal to the number of rats you control. So if you put this down, it's a 1/1. It's not efficient at all. But if you get this in your opening hand, pay 2 black, discard a card, put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of Pack Rat. This card is ultra persistent. And once you make a copy, now they're both 2/2s. If you make another copy, they're 3/3s. If you make another copy, they're both 4/4s. And the utility behind it is that Pack Rat just, it lets you chuck cards that are useless. If you have like a Naturalize sitting in your hand and there's nothing worth destroying, you can turn it instead into a creature. So it's just a great amount of utility, and it turns your useless spells in your hand into something a little bit more useful. And the fact that it's an activated ability means you can do it whenever. So end of your opponent's turn, or in response to something that's trying to threaten your board state or your life. Alright, our 5th card we're looking at is Sunscorch Regent. 3 white for a 4/3 flying. Not great, but not horrible. But the big thing about this card is whenever an opponent casts a spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Sunscorch Regent, and you gain 1 life. Your opponents play a lot of spells. If you're playing a 4-player game and each player plays an average of 1 spell per turn, the first turn going around, this becomes a 7/6 flying when it's ready to attack. Now, 3 white for a 7/6, now we're talking about some power. Let it go another round, now it's a 10/9. A 13/12. So this thing gets really big, really fast, and it doesn't really de-incentivize your opponents to play spells, because this guy is gonna get pretty big and gain you some life, but it's kind of a fair trade-off for your opponent. Oh, I get to play a spell and my opponent's creature gets a little bit bigger and they gain a life. That's not a horrible trade-off. So they're not going to target this card specifically. But that life accumulation will also bring you a long way throughout the game. So definitely worth keeping this guy. Alright, and the last card that we're working with for our bonus card is Reaper of the Wilds. 2 black-green for a 4/5 body. That alone is not bad. Pay black, it gains Death Touch until end of turn. Okay, now we're definitely ramping up some power. And pay 1 in green, it gains Hexproof until end of turn. So there's a lot of ways that stops your opponent from targeting this guy or trying to do something to, remove it from your field. The fact that you can give it Death Touch also makes it a pretty good defender and whatever else you want to do with it. And the other thing that really makes it useful is whenever another creature dies, scry 1. Basically look at the top card of your library, decide if it stays on the top or goes on the bottom. The utility with this creature is you have a Death Touch blocker that you can give it Hexproof, but it also allows you to start scrying as creatures die. In a 4-player commander game, creatures are going to die. So having this guy out lets you kind of stack your library and, decide what you need. And the utility of that in Commander is just amazing. To throw away that land you didn't need, or, maybe the top card is something that you really don't want, you can put it down on the bottom every time a creature dies. So it's a great way to just kind of, stack and modify the cards a little bit more in your favor. Alright, so that is the 5 cards for the 5 Commander cards you didn't know, plus a bonus. I'm always looking forward to see your comments, so please leave them on the videos. If you like this video, be sure to also give it a like, and I will also post a link to purchase these cards in the video description. Alright, thanks for watching.